My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 27 years old, and most mornings start with pain in my lower back and the sound of trucks unloading behind the warehouse where I work. I never planned for my life to look like this. 3 years ago, I was studying business in college while my dad worked double shifts to help pay tuition. Then he died from a heart attack in the middle of the night, and everything fell apart after that. I dropped out 2 weeks later. My mother got sick around the same time. Hospital bills started piling up. Rent got harder to pay. Every dream I had slowly turned into survival. Ethan, are you listening to me or not? Vanessa asked. I looked up from the kitchen table. Yeah. Sorry. Long day. You always say that. Vanessa stood near the counter with her arms crossed. She looked perfect even when she was angry. Perfect hair. Perfect makeup. Perfect clothes I could never afford. You said you'd apply for better jobs, she said. Did you? I've been busy. Busy doing what? Carrying boxes? I stayed quiet. She laughed under her breath. You're 27, Ethan. Not 17. I know. No, you don't know. That's the problem. I rubbed my forehead. Vanessa, I'm trying. You've been trying for 2 years. Her words hurt because part of me believed them. I loved Vanessa more than anyone. Even when she was cruel, I kept thinking she only acted like that because she wanted better for us. Better for me. I'll figure things out, I said quietly. That's what you always say. My phone buzzed before I could answer. Marcus. You still coming tonight? He asked after I picked up. I forgot. You forget everything lately. I'm tired. Marcus sighed. You sound miserable. I'm fine. No, you're not. Is she there? Vanessa rolled her eyes from across the room. Yeah, I muttered. Ethan, listen to me. You need to stop letting her talk to you like that. Vanessa walked closer. Oh my God. Is Marcus giving life advice again? He can hear you, I whispered. Good. Marcus groaned through the phone. See? This is exactly what I mean. She's frustrated, I said. She's disrespectful. Vanessa grabbed her purse. Tell your therapist friend I'm leaving. She's not my therapist. She should charge you by the hour. The front door slammed behind her. Marcus stayed quiet for a second before speaking again. Brother, this isn't normal. She's stressed. And you make excuses every time. She loves me. No, Marcus said softly. She loves the idea of money. I leaned back in my chair. You don't understand her. I understand enough. After we hung up, I sat alone in the apartment for almost an hour. The silence felt heavier every week. Sometimes I stared at the walls and wondered if Vanessa even liked me anymore. But then she'd smile at me once, touch my hand, or say she believed in me, and I'd hold on to those moments like they were oxygen. 2 nights later, Vanessa dragged me to dinner with her friends downtown. I already hated the restaurant before we sat down. The place smelled expensive. Everyone wore watches that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Claire Donovan smiled when she saw me. There he is, she said. Vanessa's hardworking boyfriend. I forced a smile. Nice to see you too. Vanessa sat beside me and whispered, Please don't embarrass me tonight. My chest tightened. What does that mean? It means try to act confident for once. Claire's boyfriend started talking about investments in vacation homes while I stared at the menu prices. Then Claire looked at me. So, Ethan, what exactly do you do again? I work at a warehouse. Oh. She took a sip of wine. Temporary thing? No. Vanessa laughed awkwardly. He's figuring things out. Claire tilted her head. At 27? I felt heat rise into my face. I'm taking care of my mom too, I said. That's sweet, Claire replied, sounding bored already. The conversation moved on without me. For almost an hour, I sat there listening to people talk about luxury apartments, stock markets, and weekend trips to Miami. Every sentence reminded me how small I felt around them. Then Claire suddenly smiled at Vanessa. You better hold on to him before he ends up homeless. Everyone laughed. Even Vanessa. That laugh broke something inside me. I stared at her while the others kept joking around the table. You think that's funny? I asked quietly. Vanessa stopped smiling. Don't start. I asked you a question. Claire looked uncomfortable. Guys, relax. It was a joke. Yeah, Vanessa said. Don't be so sensitive. Sensitive. I spent years breaking my body at work to help my mother survive while trying to build a future with her, and somehow I was the problem. I pushed my chair back. I'm leaving. Vanessa grabbed my arm. Sit down. No. You're embarrassing me. I laughed bitterly. That's your concern? Ethan, stop acting dramatic. I pulled my arm away and walked out before I said something worse. Vanessa came home 2 hours later. I was sitting on the couch in the dark when she walked in. You acted like a child tonight, she said immediately. I stared at her. You laughed at me. It was a joke. You knew it hurt me. You get hurt by everything. I stood up. Because I'm tired, Vanessa. I'm tired of feeling like I'm never enough for you. She tossed her keys onto the counter. Maybe because you aren't. The room went silent. I felt those words hit me straight in the chest. You don't mean that, I whispered. Yes, I do. I shook my head slowly. After everything I've done for us? I stuffed the last trash bag into my car while neighbors pretended not to watch me. My hands shook so badly I dropped one of my shoes onto the pavement. A woman walking her dog glanced at me, then quickly looked away. That hurt more than staring. People looked at homeless men every day. They just never expected one to be me. I sat inside my old Honda and locked the doors. For 10 straight minutes, I stared at Vanessa's apartment window. No movement. No message. No apology. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed. Mom. I wiped my face before answering. Hey, Ma. Ethan, sweetheart, you sound tired. Long shift. You're working too hard again. I forced a laugh. Somebody has to pay your hospital bills. Don't joke about that. I'm okay. You still staying with Marcus tonight? The lie almost caught in my throat. Yeah. Good. I hate thinking about you driving late. I looked around my car filled with garbage bags and blankets. Me too. After we hung up, I leaned my head against the steering wheel and closed my eyes. I didn't know where to go. By midnight, I parked outside a grocery store and tried to sleep in the back seat. It was freezing. Every sound made me jump awake. Shopping carts. Engines. Random footsteps. At one point, somebody knocked on my window. You can't sleep here, a security guard said. I'll leave soon. You said that 2 hours ago. I'm just tired, man. He looked at me for a second before sighing. Just don't cause problems. The next morning, my back felt broken. I changed clothes inside a gas station bathroom before work. When I looked into the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Dark circles. Red eyes. Wrinkled shirt. I looked exactly how Vanessa used to describe me. Pathetic. Marcus called during my lunch break. Where are you? At work. No, after work. I stayed quiet. Ethan. I'm figuring it out. You've been sleeping in your car, haven't you? I rubbed my forehead. Just temporary. Come stay with me. I don't want problems with Lena. Forget Lena. That's easy for you to say. Marcus lowered his voice. Brother, you can't live like this. I don't have a choice. You do now. Come over tonight. I finally agreed because I was too exhausted to argue anymore. Lena opened the door when I arrived. Her smile looked forced. Hey, Ethan. Thanks for letting me stay. Marcus said it'll only be for a little while. Marcus walked into the hallway. Babe. I'm just being honest, she replied. I carried my bags inside quietly. That night, Marcus handed me a beer while Lena stayed in the kitchen pretending not to listen. You okay? He asked. No. You want to talk about it? What's the point? The point is you're my best friend. I stared at the floor. She replaced me in less than a week. Marcus frowned. What? He grabbed my phone after I opened social media. Vanessa stood beside a tall man in an expensive suit on a yacht. Her caption read, "Finally with someone who matches my future." Marcus cursed under his breath. Who's that? Damian Cross. The real estate guy? Apparently. Another picture showed Vanessa smiling at some luxury restaurant while Damian kissed her cheek. I couldn't stop staring at it. She used to complain when I spent $20 on dinner, I muttered. Marcus tossed the phone onto the couch. Stop looking at that garbage. I don't understand how she moved on so fast. The first time I walked into the shelter, I kept my head down and prayed nobody recognized me. The smell of soup and old coffee filled the room while people lined up beside folding tables with plastic trays in their hands. Some looked exhausted. Others looked completely numb. A few months ago, I would have felt sorry for them. Now I was one of them. A volunteer near the door smiled at me. First time here? Yeah, I muttered. Sign your name on the sheet. I grabbed the pen quickly, hoping nobody would look too closely at me. You can sit anywhere, she said gently. I nodded and carried my tray toward the corner of the room. Then I heard a familiar voice behind me. Well, look who finally joined the living dead. I turned and saw Walter sitting alone with a cup of coffee. You always this cheerful? I asked. Only before noon. I sat across from him. Walter pointed at my tray. You should eat before it gets cold. I'm not really hungry. That's depression talking. I let out a tired laugh. You got advice for everything? When you sleep on sidewalks long enough, you learn things. I stared down at the soup. I used to think people here gave up on life. Walter shrugged. Some did. Some got abandoned. Some just got unlucky. I got all three. You still breathing? Barely. Then you ain't done yet. Before I could answer, a woman's voice cut through the room. Who messed up the storage list again? I looked toward the back hallway and saw a woman holding several papers while arguing with two volunteers. She looked around my age. Dark hair tied back. Sharp eyes. No fake smile. One volunteer sighed. The milk delivery got mixed with canned goods again. That's the third time this week, she snapped. I didn't organize it. Well, somebody did. Walter leaned closer. That's Sophia. She runs this place? She keeps this place alive. Sophia walked toward the storage room while muttering under her breath. I watched for a second before standing. Walter raised an eyebrow. Where you going? I used to manage warehouse inventory. So maybe I can help. Walter smirked. There he is. I walked into the storage room carefully. Sophia barely looked at me. Kitchen volunteers only. I think your labeling system is backwards. That got her attention. What? I pointed toward the shelves. Dry food should be separated by expiration dates, not product type. Your workers waste time searching because everything's mixed together. She crossed her arms. And you know this because? I worked warehouse logistics for years. Sophia stared at me for a moment. Then she handed me the clipboard. Show me. For the next hour, we reorganized half the room together. You move faster than the volunteers, she admitted. I used to unload trucks in 6 minutes. That sounds miserable. It paid rent. She looked at me briefly before speaking again. Well, you just saved us 3 hours of work. I shrugged. Wasn't hard. It was for everyone else. For the first time in weeks, I felt useful. Not pitted. Not judged. Useful. Sophia handed me a bottle of water. You looking for work? I'm looking for anything. You got experience with spreadsheets? Basic stuff. Can you count inventory without messing it up? I literally just fixed your inventory. She laughed quietly. Fair point. I'm not asking for charity, I said quickly. I didn't offer charity. Something about the way she said it felt different from Vanessa. No insults. No sarcasm. No disappointment hiding behind every sentence. Just respect. That alone almost hurt more. Over the next few days, I kept returning to the shelter. I stopped thinking about Vanessa every morning the second work started taking over my life. Sophia gave me keys to the storage building 3 days after her business proposal. Don't lose them, she said. You trust me that much already? I trust hardworking people. That's dangerous. She smirked. Then don't prove me wrong. The business started small. Really small. Most days, it was just me driving an old donation van across the city while Sophia handled paperwork and phone calls from local stores. Sometimes restaurants donated leftover food. Sometimes grocery stores gave us damaged boxes they couldn't sell. Sometimes people promised donations and never answered the door. Still, every morning, we tried again. You know what our problem is? Sophia asked one night while staring at a spreadsheet. We're broke? Besides that. I laughed tiredly. She pointed at the screen. We waste too much time on routes. I can fix that. You said that yesterday. And I meant it yesterday. I grabbed a marker and walked toward the whiteboard. If we group pickups by neighborhood instead of donation size, we save gas and time. Sophia leaned back in her chair. You figured all that out already? I spent years organizing warehouse trucks. Then why were you stuck carrying boxes for terrible pay? The question hit harder than she intended. I shrugged slowly. I stopped believing I deserved more. Sophia looked at me for a second before speaking again. Well, stop doing that. Simple words. But they stayed in my head all night. Over the next few weeks, I worked harder than I ever had before. I woke up before sunrise. I skipped meals to save money. I learned delivery schedules, inventory systems, budgeting, and customer calls. When problems happened, Sophia expected solutions instead of excuses. At first, the pressure terrified me. Then it started changing me. One afternoon, Marcus climbed into the van beside me while I organized boxes. "You look different," he said. "I smell different too." "No, seriously." He studied my face. "You actually look awake again." I shrugged. "I'm busy." "That's good." "You still think I'm pathetic?" Marcus frowned. "I never thought that. You warned me about Vanessa for years. Because I hated watching you disappear. I stayed quiet." Marcus sighed. "You know what scared me most?" "What?" "You acted like her opinion mattered more than your own. That one hurt because it was true." "I loved her," I muttered. "You worshipped her." I looked away immediately. Marcus softened his voice. "Brother, loving someone shouldn't make you feel small." For the first time in months, I finally believed him. That night, Walter found me outside the shelter fixing a broken tire on the van. "You work too much," he said. "Says the homeless philosopher." Walter laughed before sitting beside me. "You know why most people fail?" "Bad luck?" "No. Fear." I tightened the wrench harder. "Fear of what?" "Fear that they ain't worth anything." I stopped moving. Walter pointed at me. "That woman convinced you your value depended on her approval. She wasn't wrong about everything. Son, people can tell you ugly truths while still destroying you." I leaned against the van quietly. Walter stared at the city lights. "You know what survival taught me?" "What?" "Nobody's coming to save you. But that doesn't mean you can't save yourself." His words stayed inside me for days. Slowly, I stopped hearing Vanessa's voice every time I made a mistake. I stopped apologizing constantly. I stopped lowering my eyes during conversations. Piece by piece, I started becoming someone else. Meanwhile, Vanessa's perfect online life kept getting louder. Luxury hotels. Private dinners. Vacation pictures beside Damien's expensive cars. But something about her smile looked different now. Forced. Like she was trying too hard. One evening, Marcus called while I unloaded supplies. "You heard what happened?" "What now?" "Vanessa quit her job." I froze. "Why?" "Apparently Damien told her she didn't need to work anymore." "That sounds like her dream." Marcus hesitated. "Lena heard something else too." "What?" "He gets jealous when she goes out without him." I stayed silent. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction. Instead, I just felt strange. A week later, Sophia and I stayed late preparing for a city business networking event. "You nervous?" she asked. "I don't belong around rich people." "That's insecurity talking again." "I hate when you say things like that." "Because I'm usually right." I rolled my eyes. Sophia handed me a clean button-up shirt. "Wear this tomorrow." "I already have clothes." "You have trauma disguised as clothing." I laughed despite myself. Everything started changing after the grocery partnership deal. One meeting. One signature. That was all it took. Suddenly, Sophia and I weren't struggling to survive anymore. 3 local grocery chains hired us to handle donation pickups and inventory transport for their extra food programs. The shelter vans turned into actual company vehicles. Our phones wouldn't stop ringing. And for the first time in years, I stopped checking my bank account with fear in my chest. Sophia walked into the office one morning holding coffee and a stack of papers. "We need another driver," she said. "We need sleep first." She laughed. "Too expensive." I grabbed the contracts from her hands. "These numbers real?" "Very real." I stared at the page again. 6 months ago, I was sleeping in my car. Now businesses trusted me with operations management. It still didn't feel real. You did this, Sophia said quietly. We did this. No, she shook her head. You stopped seeing yourself as worthless. That changed everything. I looked away because part of me still struggled to believe her. A week later, I signed the lease for my first apartment. It wasn't luxurious. Small kitchen. Cheap carpet. Thin walls. But it was mine. I sat alone on the floor that first night surrounded by unpacked boxes and almost cried. Not because the apartment was impressive. Because nobody could throw me out anymore. My phone rang while I stared at the ceiling. Mom. Hey, I answered softly. You sound tired. Long day. You always say that. Her voice paused. Ethan, are you avoiding me? My chest tightened immediately. No. Then why haven't you visited? I closed my eyes. Because I was ashamed. Because I didn't want her seeing me broken. Because I spent months pretending my life wasn't falling apart. I've just been busy, I whispered. Mothers know when their children are hurting. That sentence almost shattered me. I drove to her apartment the next morning. The second she opened the door, guilt hit me hard. She looked smaller than before. Sicker. But she still smiled at me like I was the best thing in her life. There's my handsome boy. I hugged her carefully. And suddenly, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I lost everything, I said quietly. Her smile faded. What? We sat at the kitchen table while I told her everything. Vanessa throwing me out. Sleeping in my car. Losing jobs. The shelter. Walter. All of it. Mom covered her mouth halfway through the story. You went through all that alone? I didn't want you worrying. Tears filled her eyes immediately. Ethan, I'm your mother. I know. You should have told me. I felt like a failure. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Look at me. I forced myself to meet her eyes. You gave up your future to take care of this family after your father died, she said. You worked yourself into the ground for me. I dropped out of college. You survived. I wasn't enough for Vanessa. Mom's expression hardened instantly. Then she was blind. I looked down quietly. She made you feel small, Mom continued softly. But your father would be proud of the man you became. That one broke me completely. I lowered my head while tears hit the table. Mom stood slowly and wrapped her arms around me. And for the first time in months, I stopped carrying the pain alone. Business kept growing after that. We hired 2 drivers. Then 4. Sophia spent entire days arguing with suppliers while I handled routes and logistics. One afternoon, Marcus walked into the office grinning. You got employees now, he asked. Scary, right? You remember when you used to panic ordering fast food? I still panic. Marcus looked around proudly. I'm serious, man. You built something real. We're still growing. You're allowed to enjoy success sometimes. Before I could answer, Sophia appeared from the hallway. Ethan, emergency. What now? One of the drivers mixed frozen deliveries with dry goods. I sighed deeply. I'll handle it. Marcus laughed while I grabbed my jacket. There's the warehouse guy again. That night, I collapsed onto my couch exhausted. Then my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages. Calls. News alerts. Marcus texted first. Turn on the TV. I grabbed the remote immediately. A reporter stood outside a luxury high-rise downtown. Real estate investor Damian Cross is currently under investigation for financial fraud and money laundering involving multiple shell companies. My stomach dropped. Rainwater dripped from Vanessa's coat onto the floor of my apartment while she stood near the doorway like she expected me to throw her back outside. Part of me wanted to. Another part remembered loving her so deeply that losing her nearly destroyed me. "I can leave if you want," she said quietly. I shut the door behind us. "You already said you had nowhere else." Vanessa looked down. "I don't." The silence between us felt unbearable. This apartment used to feel peaceful. Now every memory I buried started crawling back into my head again. The insults. The laughter. The hallway filled with trash bags holding everything I owned. I walked toward the kitchen. "You hungry?" She hesitated. "A little." I handed her leftover pasta from the fridge. "Thank you." Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Vanessa sat carefully at the table while I stayed standing. "You can sit," she whispered. "I'm fine." She nodded slowly and stared at the food for several seconds before finally eating. That hurt more than I expected too. Vanessa used to complain if restaurants served sparkling water instead of imported brands. Now she looked grateful for leftovers. "You don't have to pity me," she said suddenly. "I don't." "Yes, you do." I leaned against the counter. "I honestly don't know what I feel." Vanessa stopped eating. "I deserve that." I laughed bitterly. "That's supposed to make things easier?" "No." "Then why say it?" "Because I spent years pretending I never hurt you." The room went quiet again. Finally, I sat across from her. "Why are you really here?" Her fingers tightened around the fork. "Damian lost everything after the investigation started," she said softly. "The money froze. The accounts disappeared. People stopped answering his calls. And he changed." I stared at her carefully. "He started drinking every night," she continued. "Then yelling. Then breaking things." I folded my arms. "You still stayed." "Because I was scared." "You weren't scared when you threw me out." Pain flashed across her face instantly. "I know." Those two words should have satisfied me. They didn't. Vanessa rubbed her eyes slowly. "I've replayed that night 1,000 times." "Good." She flinched. Part of me hated myself for enjoying that reaction. But another part remembered sleeping in parking lots while she posted vacation pictures online. "You humiliated me," I said quietly. "I know." "You laughed at me." Tears filled her eyes immediately. "I know." "You made me feel worthless." Vanessa lowered her head. I already hated myself back then. I frowned. "What?" She stayed silent for several seconds before answering. "You think I became obsessed with money because I'm shallow," she whispered. "But you never saw where I came from." I didn't respond. "My dad gambled every dollar we had," she continued. "Some nights we ate crackers for dinner because he lost grocery money." I looked at her carefully. Vanessa stayed in my apartment for 9 days before the tension started poisoning everything around me. At first, we barely spoke. She slept on the couch. I stayed in my room pretending I couldn't hear her crying at night. Every morning felt awkward. Every silence felt heavy. One evening, I walked into the kitchen and found her staring at an unpaid bill. "You okay?" I asked carefully. She laughed bitterly. "Do I look okay?" I leaned against the counter quietly. Vanessa rubbed her eyes. "I applied to 6 jobs today." "That's good." "None of them called back." "You just started looking." "They know who I am." I stayed silent because she wasn't wrong. The internet destroyed her daily. Videos. Memes. Comments. The same people who once admired her now mocked her endlessly. Gold digger loses millionaire boyfriend. Karma finally caught her. She stopped checking social media after the third day. I used to think public humiliation couldn't physically hurt, she said softly. Now I understand what I did to you. That sentence stayed in my head longer than I wanted. The next morning, Sophia cornered me outside the office. We need to talk. That sounds dangerous. I'm serious. I followed her into the storage room. Sophia crossed her arms immediately. How long is Vanessa staying with you? I don't know. You don't know, or you don't want to answer? I sighed. She has nowhere else to go. And somehow that became your responsibility? She's struggling. So did you. I looked away. Sophia stepped closer. Do you still love her? The question hit me harder this time. No, I answered quickly. Too fast. I mean it. Then what is this? I rubbed my forehead slowly. I don't know. Sophia's voice softened slightly. Ethan, there's a difference between love and addiction. I frowned. What? You spent years needing Vanessa to approve of you. That's not healthy love. I stayed quiet. You know what scares me? Sophia continued. The second she looks broken, you start trying to save her again. That's not what's happening. Isn't it? I wanted to argue. But part of me knew she saw right through me. I'm not the same person anymore, I muttered. Then stop acting like your self-worth depends on fixing people who hurt you. After she left, I sat alone in the storage room for almost 20 minutes. Because deep down, I realized something terrifying. For years, I confused love with being needed. That night, Marcus came over carrying takeout boxes. I brought food and judgment, he announced. Sounds healthy. We sat at the kitchen table while Vanessa stayed quietly in the living room. Marcus lowered his voice. This situation's getting messy. She's trying. She destroyed you. I know. And now you feel guilty because she's suffering. I stabbed my noodles harder than necessary. Marcus sighed. Brother, compassion is fine. Just don't lose yourself again. Vanessa suddenly stood from the couch. You can say it louder, she said coldly. I can hear you. Marcus looked directly at her. Good. Marcus, I warned. No, he snapped. I watched him sleep in his car while you vacationed with rich people. Vanessa looked down instantly. Marcus pointed toward me. Do you know how broken he was? I know, she whispered. No, you don't. The room fell silent. Then Vanessa quietly walked back into the living room without another word. Marcus leaned closer after she left. She still affects you too much. I hated hearing that because it was true. 3 days later, Damian Cross got arrested. I watched the footage from the office television while reporters crowded around police cars. Fraud. Money laundering. Tax crimes. The entire empire collapsed publicly. Sophia muted the screen beside me. You okay? I think so. You sound disappointed. I stared at Damien being shoved into a police vehicle. I thought revenge would feel better. Sophia nodded slowly. Most people think that. But the worst part came later. Investigators started questioning Vanessa publicly. News channels dragged her name through every conversation. Online comments turned vicious. She's probably guilty too. She only dated him for money. Lock her up next. One night, I found Vanessa sitting on my apartment floor staring at her phone. "They're calling me a criminal," she whispered. I sat beside her carefully. "I didn't even know what he was doing." "I believe you." She laughed weakly. "That might make you the only person left. You still have time to rebuild." Vanessa shook her head. "You rebuilt because you're strong." I almost laughed at that. "You think I was strong?" I asked quietly. "I was homeless. But you survived." Her voice cracked near the end. And for the first time, I realized she genuinely hated herself now. A few days later, Walter collapsed outside the shelter. Pastor Neil called me while I was working. "You need to come quickly." By the time I reached the hospital, Walter looked weaker than I'd ever seen him. Machines beeped softly around us. Walter smirked when he saw me. "You look terrible. You almost died. Still handsome though." I laughed despite the fear in my chest. I didn't sleep for 2 nights after Vanessa asked me for help. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same things. My clothes in trash bags. The sidewalk I slept on. Her laughing at that dinner table while I broke inside. And now she stood on the edge of losing everything too. It made no sense in my head. I hated her. But I also couldn't ignore what Walter said before he died. "Don't become the people who broke you." The third night, I finally opened the folder Vanessa gave me. It was messy. Bank statements. Emails. Legal documents. Confusing records tied to Damien Cross's companies. I stared at it for a long time. Then I said out loud, even though no one was there, "What if I'm making a mistake?" My phone rang immediately. "Sophia." "I knew you'd be awake," she said. "Are you stalking me now? You sound stressed." "I am." "About Vanessa." I didn't answer. Sophia stayed quiet for a second. "What are you trying to decide? Whether I save her or let her fall?" That honesty surprised even me. Sophia didn't respond immediately. Then she said, "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." I frowned. "That doesn't help." "It's not supposed to." "What does it mean then?" "It means you choose who you want to become." That line stayed with me after we hung up. The next morning, Marcus came over without asking. He looked at the folder on my table and sighed immediately. "You're really doing this?" She didn't know. Marcus rubbed his face. "Ethan." "She didn't. She still destroyed you." "I know." "Then why are you saving her?" I stared at the papers. "Because I don't want to become someone who enjoys watching people suffer." Marcus stayed quiet for a long moment. Then he said something softer. "Brother, she already suffered." That hit harder than I expected. I looked at him. "So what, I just let her drown?" "I'm saying karma already hit her. She might go to prison." Marcus nodded slowly. "And you might lose everything you built trying to fix someone who broke you." That sentence lingered in the air long after he left. That night, Vanessa stood in the kitchen watching me without speaking. "You're going to decide soon, aren't you?" she asked. I didn't look up. "Yeah. I'm scared." "I know. I don't want you to feel forced." I finally looked at her. "I'm not doing this for you." That surprised her. "I'm doing it because I need to know who I am," I continued. Vanessa nodded slowly. "And what do you think you are?" I didn't answer immediately. Because I didn't know anymore. The next day, Sophia called me into the office. She looked serious. "You've been distracted." "I'm handling something personal." She crossed her arms. "Is it worth risking everything we built?" I hesitated. That hesitation answered her question. Sophia sighed. You know what scares me most? What? That you're starting to confuse saving her with saving yourself. I frowned. That's not fair. It's honest. We stood there silently for a moment. Then she softened her voice slightly. Just don't lose yourself again. That night, I finally made my decision. I helped Vanessa. Not because I forgave her, but because I refused to become someone who could ignore truth just to feel satisfied. We spent days going through everything together. Late nights. Empty coffee cups.